Warning: the Savage Nation contains adult language, adult content, psychological nudity. Listener discretion is advised. And now, the world's most exciting podcast, The Savage Nation, home of borders, language, culture. And here he is, New York Times best-selling author and National Radio Hall of Fame inductee, Michael Savage.
Welcome to the Michael Savage Radio Bonus Podcast. On today's bonus podcast, you'll hear another incredible radio broadcast from yesteryear. So enjoy this golden oldie from 2007 from the Michael Savage Radio Archives. I hope you enjoy it. Kalispell, Montana. Tim, you're on the Savage Nation. What's on your mind? Go ahead, please.
Mike, I want to know what the solution is if your wife kind of seems to be turning over from AC to DC and, just not as much interest in being a woman as there used to be.
Well, you mean you're having that problem now?
Well, it seems to be developing, and I was wondering if, you said it.
How many years have you been married?
Almost 30, 28 years.
Well, what are her options? I mean, there are women in town who are, looking for her or what? I mean, at that age?
Oh, no, that's not what I mean. But I thought that you meant they just kind of lose interest in the man, I guess I'd say. Not so much.
Well, after 30 years, what do you expect? I mean, you've had a pretty good run at it, buddy. I mean, 30 years is a pretty good track record. Don't underestimate yourself here. Don't take it personally. At a certain point, the woman doesn't want to be bothered with that kind of stuff generally. Yeah, I'm talking about basically the fringe cities like New York and San Francisco and L.A. where at a younger age they cut their hair off already and they think that they're AC/DC and foot power. You're in another category. You're another category altogether. I mean, she's just losing interest in that particular part of her life. It doesn't mean she doesn't like you.
Well, yeah, I thought it was just the hassle of having little kids and stuff, and then they started to grow up and nothing. Well,
you're saying the kids grew up and now you're alone and now you thought you'd have a wild free time day and night?
Well, no, but I thought. Let
me ask you something. Is there any way to tell your doctor to back off on the RXs for Viagra? I mean, with the advent of Viagra and Levitra and the others and Cialis, I mean, the poor women don't get a break. They reach a certain point where they figure the guy will leave them alone. Now all of a sudden they wake up and there's a rapist in the house.
Come on.
Thanks for having a good sense of humor. I'll be right back.
Who are standing around.
All right, we have an emergency here. Minutes ago, a bridge over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis has collapsed. The Interstate 35W Mississippi River Bridge near University Avenue has fallen into the river. Cars are in the river. A couple of cars are on fire. School bus full of children are safe. There are cars trapped on the bridge. The passengers are trapped on the bridge above the water. Tons of concrete have collapsed. People are injured. Survivors are being rescued. This is a major, major deal. Now, the road has been under construction since the beginning of summer. Nobody knows why this happened. We can immediately rule out terrorism, though. That we know. We must immediately rule out terrorism because if we even think it, we might be arrested for a hate crime. We do not know if Michael Chertoff had a gut feeling about this in some way, but we'll keep you posted. The I-35W bridge has collapsed into the Mississippi River. It is something to behold. Let's listen in quickly. Go ahead.
To other hospitals in the area. They'll be triaged. HCMC at this point is considering this a disaster situation. They don't know at this point, though, how many patients will be brought here. Several will be taken to other hospitals. But even as I'm standing here, you can see several ambulances have gone by, and they'll be dropping people off here. They'll be leaving, and certainly they've sent as many resources as possible out to the scene to be able to help in any way they can. The more ambulances out there, the more medical personnel out there, the better.
This is a breaking story, happened a few minutes ago. A bridge collapsed into the Mississippi River in Minneapolis. It's an Interstate 35W bridge, and there are people trapped in their cars on the floating concrete, or the concrete still sitting above the water. Cars in the river, cars on fire. People have been swept away by the river. One note of good news here is that a school bus did not go down. The children were safe, but the bridge did collapse, and we don't know the cause of this. We do know, again, that it was not terrorism-related. We immediately know that it's not terrorism-related. And although we spent trillions of dollars, we must immediately all assume there is no terrorism involved in any such event, because if we do assume so, we are paranoid and subject to hospitalization and drug therapy. 1-800-449-8255. If there's somebody listening to the Savage Nation in the Minneapolis area, at the site or in the region of this collapse, and you want to call and give us an eyewitness account, please call so immediately we'll put you right up. Go ahead back to the report
and
from the scene.
She's en route here right now. So she herself, the person who kind of gathers information and gives it to us as members of the media, she herself is trying to get a handle on the situation, and she said that she should be out here within just a few minutes.
All right, Tricia, we will check back. Thank you so much. And we want to update those of you who are just arriving home from work. What you're looking at right now is a live scene. 35W in both directions collapsed shortly after 6 o'clock today. A large section of that bridge simply fell to the ground. Eyewitnesses are saying at the time there was bumper-to-bumper traffic. And apparently witnesses believe that there was road construction going on. We have no idea if that played a role in this bridge collapse or not. We spoke with one gentleman earlier on the phone who said he just fell 35 feet in a free fall, and near him, right behind him, was a school bus. That particular bus, they were able to carry all of the children off of the bus, some of whom had injuries, but obviously thankful that they were on the particular section they were on and not farther in, because a large section of that bridge simply went into the water. Also a fair amount of semi-traffic, construction vehicle traffic, which we are told may account in part anyway for the smoke you see there at the center top of your screen. There was a fire there much earlier that was blazing for a bit there. The smoke heavy and black for a time. It appears now to be somewhat under control. And we also spoke with Lieutenant Amelia Huffman with the Minneapolis Police Department not too long ago, who had told us. All right,
listening to the local reporters here in Minneapolis, a 35W bridge collapsed into the Mississippi River. People have obviously died here. It was at rush hour, full traffic into the river. And we don't know the cause. There are still cars trapped on the bridge right above the water. Some people fell right down into the raging river. It's a horrific scene. If you got a television set, many of you are watching this right now. And I'm sure we'll hear all about it all night long and, of course, into tomorrow. This is a terrible, terrible thing. Nobody is positing a reason for this collapse. They say there was construction ongoing. We have no idea, though, as to whether or not this construction had anything to do with the collapse. Moreover, we don't know if there was any terrorism involved or not. Now, you say, well, why talk about that? Why not talk about it? We're going to talk about anything because we still live in a free country. Kevin, WOR, go ahead quickly. Make your point.
I'm watching this also. Is this a metaphor for our country, that it's collapsing?
It could be. It could be. I don't know what it's a metaphor for. I know that these poor people were in their cars and they fell into the river. And there's no explanation for this, even if there was construction. Isn't it rather unusual for construction to lead to a collapse of a major artery like this with a bridge over it? A river? I never heard of this. Who was the contractor? There are 100 questions that need to be answered in the first day. Was construction involved? Did anyone see a charge of a bomb go off? I don't know. We have no idea right now. 1-800-449-8255. I realize that many of you are not interested in this because you're not there, but it's a major story. If there's anything new, we will come back to the bridge collapse over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis. Many cars are in the river. We're waiting to get an update. Fire back with the update right now. Let's hear where they are right now.
The pictures are just absolutely terrifying. It happened at 6:05 local time. The way the situation is described by people who were there was bumper-to-bumper traffic on this bridge, 35 westbound, that connects with the local university, University Avenue. It was jam-packed and traffic was at a crawl when the bridge simply gave way. One witness who was actually on the bridge and said he fell about 35 feet into the water said there was jackhammering going on. Apparently there was construction going on this bridge all summer long. He said the bridge felt like it was shaking from the jackhammer and simply gave way. A tractor trailer.
Well, that's a theory. That's a good one. Of course, the University of Minneapolis is a very liberal institution. God knows how many illegal aliens are in that university and how many wonderful people from the Middle East are in the nuclear engineering department. But, of course, they would have nothing to do with this. We can't speculate in any negative manner because we're liable to offend certain people here who have extremely thin skins, and we don't want to do that. We'll just assume it was the plain construction reason that it collapsed. You know, construction workers have no idea what they're doing in America. They have no concept of safety. It's only been going on since the beginning of the nation. I frankly don't believe that a contractor would be that foolish to have not put safety elements in place. They're going to use a jackhammer around the bridge like this at rush hour without having examined the possibility of weakening the roadway. I don't believe that either right now. So we have to wait and see. We don't know what exactly happened. We do know that it's a major league disaster in Minneapolis. We still don't even know how many people are dead, how many people are injured, because it just happened within this last hour, and we're getting these reports sketchily from the cable channels themselves and, of course, from the reporters on the scene in the local channels. The minute I come back on this show, we'll have an update for you on the Savage Nation, as well as all of the other breaking news and commentary, unlike the local newspaper, which is reporting yesterday's news.
Home of borders, language, culture, the Savage Nation.
A local news operation that as many as 50 vehicles were certainly involved.
All right, we are all hearing about the bridge collapse over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis during rush hour, bumper-to-bumper traffic, cars in the water, people unaccounted for. We don't know the cause. Rescue boat is on the scene. It's news that's breaking. We're going to bring it to you as we learn more. Go back to the feed, please.
Twisted infrastructure. Minneapolis, we know that for sure.
Get off the station. I hate this guy. I don't want to listen to this cretin. Okay, thank you very much for helping me out on this as well. Los Angeles, Larry, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please. What do you think?
Michael, as soon as I heard about this, I thought this is terrorism.
Why?
Because Paul Williams has said this in his books, that the Al-Qaeda will be hitting the infrastructure in America, the bridges, the tunnels, and this is the first thought that came to my mind.
Well, a few weeks ago in New York, the steam pipe exploded. We were told it was definitely not terrorism, but so far that story's been brushed under the rug. We were told it was a steam pipe that was old. We don't know who worked down there. We don't know if it was someone from the Middle East who was hired through affirmative action and put down there into the steam pipe area. They've never divulged to us what actually happened in New York. So we're never going to learn what happened here either. A guy has to come running out and scream Allah Akbar for you to hear it's terrorism. Even then they'll tell you it's no relationship, that he's just a madman on the wrong drug.
That's right, and it's right. It's August 1st. It's the middle of America. It's Minneapolis. We're just coming up to the...
Well, let's not rush to judgment. It could simply be a collapse, although I find it very hard to believe in this day and age with all of the safety rules, with the EEOC, with everything imaginable put in place for everything you do till you can move left or right in this country. You have to sign 5,000 forms, that this could be the result of a simple collapse. When we had a freeway collapse in the Bay Area several months ago, it was because a flaming truck hit the thing, a fuel truck. There's no reason for this one. There's no reason being given. Let's go back to the news feed now, please.
Evening rush hour.
What he's talking about either. Try the next one. Go to Wolf Blitzer, see what he knows. Nothing. Okay. He has nothing. What does anyone know? None of us know anything. So there's no point in covering this. There's nothing to cover. The bridge has collapsed. If there's any breaking news, I will give it to you. If you're in a car right now, you're not going to get anything more than you're going to get from me. If you're at home, you're already watching it on television. So there's nothing we can do with this. WRKO in Boston, Jack, go ahead, please.
Dr. Savage, I was
yes.
in construction all my life. When they build bridges, you call them coffin dams to put the post up to hold the
right.
the cement.
Right.
No one on a bridge with a jackhammer is going to let that bridge fall. There is something there at the coffin dam that let go today.
Okay, so you're saying with all the safety rules in place and the bureaucrats and the red tape, there's no way that simple jackhammering at a construction site could have weakened the pilings or the supports and caused this bridge collapse. That's your opinion.
Coffin Dam is holding up. What I'm saying is that there was a possibility. They saw the construction, knew that the traffic would back up, and not saying nothing because we want to spoil the liberals again. Something happened there, buddy.
You think somebody blew up one of the supports, the temporary supports? You're saying one of your theories would be if you were advising the FBI, you'd look into that. Did somebody tamper with one of the temporary braces? Is that what you're saying?
That's right, Jack. Doctor. You know the earthquake in 98 or something in San Francisco?
89, yes.
It was 89. Okay, I'm sorry. That was when the coffin dams let go because the earth moved. It was an earthquake. But this did not move. This is a straight bridge on a river, not in the ocean.
Yeah.
You understand how?
So your theory is you're saying look into it. You're saying look into it. Don't give up so fast that it was a pure accident. Well, I'm sure they're going to look into it. Right now they have to rescue the people in the water. That's the first step. Grand Rapids, Michigan. Brad, go ahead, please.
Thanks, Michael. It concerns me that what we do when we're at war and we're attacking, we go after infrastructures. And I'm not familiar with the area, but I would wonder if another bridge or two were taken out in the short term, if some people would be, I would say, locked in a particular part of the state over there.
What you're saying is that in a military enterprise against the city, the first thing you do is go after the infrastructure to prevent movement?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, let's hope that this is an accident and there's nothing worse coming, Let's hope that that's not what's going to, it could be just an old bridge that fell apart during construction. Let's not rush to judgment. Toledo, Ohio. John, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Good evening, Dr. Savage. I'm a conservative, was a liberal at one time, been listening to your program about 4 years. And we just had the Veterans Memorial Bridge built here in Toledo. Very nice bridge. And I didn't happen to work on that project, but I do notice a lot of bridges, even here in Toledo and in other cities, Chicago or Detroit, that are in ill repair, and this doesn't surprise me one bit.
You're saying the infrastructure across America is very old and falling apart.
Well, yeah, when this bridge was built, it was probably before the standards in which we are doing now, and if I were a betting man, I would say this bridge is at least 20, 25 years old or older.
Okay, that's certainly a possibility, and I thank you for that call. 1-800-449-8255 is the phone number. Mississippi, Frank, next up about the bridge collapse over the river. What's your comment?
Yes, sir. In my opinion, there's terrorism has been going on before 9/11 and since 9/11, but the policy is not to alarm the public because of backlash against the Islamics. And
that's a given. That we know, but we can't tie them to this at all. And there's no reason we should suggest that, but there's no question there have been numerous incidents of terrorism by Muslims against non-Muslims. I can read you at least 8 such events, whether it be the car in North Carolina, the one in San Francisco, the shooting of Jewish women in Seattle by a man who said he did it for Allah. One after the other, they've all been swept under the rug. How about the Bosnian Muslim who shot people indiscriminately in Salt Lake City and was stopped by off-duty police officers, again swept under the rug? And they didn't give you the follow-up, which is that he was given a hero's burial in Bosnia after he committed that heroic act. However, we can't rush to judgment on this. Something's wrong with this picture. We don't know whether it's old infrastructure. We don't know what it is, so we can't speculate. But then again, we can talk about it. We're not obligated not to talk about it. Nobody's controlling you or me saying don't dare talk about it. Let the authorities tell you what it was. People want to talk. People want to give you their initial gut reaction. And by God, that's what you're going to hear on this show. Chicago, Paul, go ahead, please. What's your conjecture?
Yes, sir. My credentials to say what I'm going to say is that I'm a senior technical editor of several trucking industry publications. There have been new chemicals that have been used in the past few years to eliminate salt, snow and ice. They're much stronger than salt. They have been corroding America's infrastructure and highways. And considering that the collapse was in Minneapolis, I would not at all be surprised if corrosion was the major cause.
Well, there you go. There's a rational theory as to why it collapsed. So I don't know. What are these chemicals? What's their family? These new chemicals, to melt ice. What are they using?
Most of them, they used to use sodium chloride or sodium chloride mixed with
right, salt. In other words, now what are they doing?
Now they're using magnesium chloride and calcium chloride in combinations They also are starting to...
Well, hold on. Let's tell the average person why that affects steel and concrete differently than sodium does. The magnesium, for example, it's different. How does it differ from sodium in terms of its effect upon concrete and steel?
There are some chemicals that are more aggressive than other chemicals, even though they're all in the chloride family. For example, there are acids. We consume citric acid every day. Basically,
in orange juice. Yes, in orange juice.
It's an acid. We consume vinegar. But sulfuric and nitric acid, they're in the same chemical family, but they are...
I hear you. Okay, so it's a matter of ionic strength. It's a matter of the relative strength of the acid, obviously. There are mild acids, and then there are powerful corrosive acids, and you're saying that these could be responsible for the bridge collapse. Again, we're just speculating. We have no idea. There's no new news. The bridge has collapsed in Minneapolis over a major artery. People are in the water. There are rescue boats on the scene. 20 to 30 injuries, no deaths being reported at this time. It is near the University of Minnesota campus. It is also near the Minneapolis-St. Paul Airport, out of which the flying imams flew and sued. It's called a flew and sue area. I'll be right back.
Savage.
The bridge collapses, the story, Minneapolis.
Like this, and now we're beginning to get our first reports of people arriving at hospitals. We're being told that now all area hospitals in Minneapolis, the St. Paul area, are now on alert. They are willing to take patients. We are now hearing that ambulances are arriving at various hospitals with a number of patients, and some of those patients are in critical conditions. We know that they are flying helicopters.
Everyone's talking about this, the injuries. We don't know if there are any deaths. We have no idea why this happened. The only thing we know for sure is that it was not terrorism. We cannot even think that, because if we do, we are committing some kind of crime against America, and we might be arrested for a hate crime or a thought crime. So flush that thought down your mind. Now, there was construction ongoing, but we just learned in the last 2 minutes that there was no such construction underneath the bridge itself. It was on the roadway leading up to the bridge. So I don't know how you could say it was to do with the construction. You know, anything is possible. But something's going to break on this. The main thing is the safety of the people. They got boats out there. Rescue boats are in the river. They say there's 30 or so injuries. They say there's no deaths. But how can they know that right now? In fact, 2 people are now confirmed dead. According to a Milwaukee NBC affiliate, they know the 2 people are now confirmed dead. And that's just the beginning. Let's get the callers up here. Alan, WOR, you're on the Savage Nation. What's your quick comment on this bridge collapse in Minneapolis?
Hearts and prayers with these people who are getting through this. I just want to say that once again, Homeland Security and Chertoff as the...
Wait, what does Homeland Security have to do with this? How could he know the bridge was going to collapse?
I just want to say this. Right now, we have an opportunity to comfort people by showing the force and the contingency in place. We spend millions of dollars on these plans.
Oh, well, that's another story. Yes, you're saying where is the federal response, which should be immediate? We have trillions of dollars invested. It's like a Katrina. Every time there's a tragedy, there's no federal response. There was none in New York. I hear you on that. There should be an immediate federal response to a bridge collapse like this. What, God forbid, if someone set off a dirty bomb? What would it take them, 3 months to figure out what to do? That's what you're saying, aren't you, Alan?
Absolutely. And
Right. Okay, the man is right. Where is the immediate federal response? They should be there, Johnny, on the spot. Something, some presence, some statement from a federal official saying this is not terrorism. Where are they? They're all on vacation? Albany, New York. Arthur, your quick comment on this bridge collapse.
Thank you, Dr. Savage. I've been thinking about this whole thing, and the only thing I can come up with is between the bridge and that steam pipe in New York, these things have gone on as long as I've been alive, and they're incidents. When you think about terrorism, every time any kind of terroristic act has happened in recent years has been very grandiose, very aggrandized. They want you to know you were hit, and they're going to make sure that there is no...
All right, so you're saying this is too minor a hit for the terrorists. I don't know what you call minor or major, and I'm not saying it's terrorism. We're just saying nobody knows anything. But we must rule out terrorism in order to retain loyal Americans. We must rule out terrorism. That we know, right, Arthur?
No, I cannot say it's not terrorism in any way.
Well, why not? I mean, I'm sure that anyone who says it's terrorism is a right-wing nutcase. It's not terrorism. It's merely construction oversights. 1-800-449-8255 is the phone number. Bakersfield, California. Matt, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, the first thing that came to my head when I was thinking about this whole thing, Savage, is that didn't the flying imams attend a conference in Minneapolis before they boarded the plane to start harassing everybody? And
but that has nothing to do. This has nothing to do with the flying imams, and they certainly haven't become floating imams. That we know. They weren't on this bridge, so far as we know. They're not floating in the water. They're still flying imams. They're flying from one court to another. But they've agreed not to sue any John Does. That's because they didn't agree to anything. The Congress pulled the rug out from under them. They were going to sue everyone in sight. But thankfully, they're not floating imams right now. That's the main thing to remember, is that they are not floating imams. The important thing is that they're still alive and healthy and well, and they can continue to sue and work the courts like an oil well in Saudi Arabia. But I want to ask you something. Do you believe that the federal government in the first hour should have some presence there or not? Do you believe there should be some federal official who's giving a speech immediately to some extent or another? You know, we had a lot of controversy over Katrina where the government didn't react properly. We were told that there were a lot of safety checks in place, that if there was another tragedy of any kind, they'd be Johnny on the spot. We had the New York steam pipe explosion. I saw no federal presence. I saw no federal speech. Nothing, zero, nada. Now, maybe they're doing this on purpose to say to you, calm down, there's no terrorism, don't rush to judgment. And that could be a strategy on their part. I frankly think it's a bad strategy. I think if they're going to play Big Brother and they're our protector, I think Big Brother should be at these sites, and they should be there fast. And they should say there is no terrorism. It's because the nuts broke on the support structures or something to that effect. I'd like to know why there's no commentary from Homeland Security, but I don't think we're going to get that answer as well. We're going to continue to cover any breaking news on this. There really is not much I can tell you that you can't get yourself truthfully from a television set. Many of you, though, are in a car right now, and you don't have access to television, so I'll continue to bring you updates on the bridge collapse over the Mississippi River. This is definitely bridge over troubled waters, or it's a troubled bridge over calm waters. All I know is that a bridge has collapsed on a major artery over the Mississippi River, right coming out of the University of Minnesota campus.
Michael Savage, a host like no other.
3 or 4 lanes of traffic was down to 1 with a lot of cars. A buddy of mine said, this isn't normal.
Yeah, okay, we're going back again to the 35W highway bridge collapse out of Minneapolis. Several are dead, many injured, people in the water, rescue boats on the way. Chaos, total and absolute chaos. Nobody knows the cause. Nobody knows the cause right now, but people, of course, being people, are speculating. The only thing we know is that it was not terrorism. That's the one thing we must all agree upon immediately in order not to be accused of being racist, bigots, or crazy right-wingers. So don't even think it was terrorism-related. This has to be something to do with either infrastructure or the hegemony of the old white boy network and their shoddy construction in the United States of America. 1-800-449-8255. If you want to sound off in 30 seconds or less, come on the air. Just say what you're thinking. Don't say hello to me, please. Just say, I'm Bob, here's what I think kind of thing. Okay, let's try it now. Let us begin in Cincinnati. Tim, you're on the Savage Nation. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name's Tim, and my dad worked for the state of Ohio inspecting bridges for 40 years, and we had a bridge in 1967 fall between West Virginia and Ohio, the Silver Bridge, killed 80 people, and it was because of corrosion and an eye bolt. It was a suspension bridge. And he told me that I never wanted to get on a fully loaded bridge that was more than 15 years old. So what he used to make me do is sit at the ramp and wait till my lane of traffic got halfway across the bridge, and then he would allow me to go on it. Thanks, Dr. Savage, for taking my call.
No, thank you. I can't wait to ride over the Golden Gate Bridge tonight after the show. That should be fun. But according to the latest reports, there was only one lane of traffic in each direction on this bridge tonight. It was not fully loaded with cars. That's what we're hearing. By the way, on michaelsavage.com, we have the best live feed of this as it's happening in real time. The 35W bridge collapse coming from a local station, from a chopper out there. It's better than any of the networks are covering it in the sense that it's local and live. And I want you to turn on your computer or go over to my website, because if you want to see there's still smoke coming out. Here we are. There's black smoke coming out right now. Black smoke is coming out from one of the fissures in the bridge over a highway section, not over the water itself. Something smoking. Looks like a car fell in. I can see a school bus sitting suspended over the highway. Thankfully, we heard the children did not get hurt. Let's go to the NBC Minneapolis feed right now, the one I have on michaelsavage.com.
Here's a picture of the bridge that is part of the MnDOT site, we believe, and just has some information on the bridge. For example, it was 64 feet high before this collapse, and it was built in 1967, regularly inspected, as we have mentioned, by MnDOT. We're not sure when the last date that
40
was.
40 years old. This is a feed coming directly from KARE 11 out of Minneapolis. It's a better feed than any listen.
Collapsed instantaneously, and we've heard eyewitnesses and people who were actually in cars on the bridge at the time when it fell that 65 feet say that it was just a complete free fall.
Spans about 2,000 feet, and many emergency vehicles.
65 feet is 6 stories high. Think of your car falling from the 6th floor of an apartment building into a river. That's what happened to some folks today in Minneapolis. We're listening to the breaking news out of Chopper 5, right out of Minneapolis. It's better than the national feeds. I've got it for you live here on the Savage Nation. If you want to watch the pictures on michaelsavage.com, go ahead, please.
At this point, we have no knowledge of that. What it looks to be is just what you see it to be, a tragic, tragic evening here in Minneapolis where that bridge has collapsed. We also know that weather may be playing a role in what is happening here in the way of recovery. And our weather team is in the office right now giving us an update on some storms, gentlemen, moving through the area.
Let's forget this part of it. We don't need it. If you have a comment to make that you think is important for a national radio audience, let's go to the callers. Let us go to WOR in New York where Greg awaits. Go ahead, Greg. What's on your mind? What do you think?
Yes, Michael. All bridges either go an annual or a biannual inspection to make sure what the steel condition is like. So that's going to be a big question. When was the last time this bridge was inspected? And I don't know what kind of road work they're doing up on top, but maybe they went too close to expansion joints. I don't know. But
you're a bridge painter, correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, in Manhattan. I'm currently working on the Manhattan Bridge. And I've seen...
Well, those bridges are 100 years old, some of them. I remember driving over the Williamsburg Bridge when I was a kid. The bridge was already an antique.
Correct. And that's a big part. A lot of this infrastructure is very old, and I've worked on some of these bridges. The steel is paper thin because of no maintenance.
Well, I hear that from guys who are riveters on the Golden Gate Bridge, that they've told me you don't want to know how thin some of the beams are. They've told me that. It's a 24/7, around 365 a year job, and they tell me that the steel is very thin in sections. But, most people don't pay any attention to that. So you think this is simply a matter of age catching up. But the bridge is only 40 years old. That's not very old for a bridge, is it?
Well, look, for example, there's the Tappan Zee Bridge in New York that was built in the 60s, and they're thinking about ripping that down now because it's all also it has to do with maintenance. What kind of maintenance are they doing? If you're not doing any maintenance like they didn't do for many years and the main bridges of New York City, they're going to fall apart.
Right. They needed night basketball, and, of course, now we need the money in Iraq, not for infrastructure repair. It's always going somewhere else. Thank you for that call. We're talking about the bridge collapse over the Mississippi River in Minneapolis. Let's go back to the local feed, local only. Go ahead, please.
Training is different because the possibility of a calamity is perhaps a little bit less so. So I think in this situation, you've got two reasons why you're seeing what appears to be a very measured and matter-of-fact type operation here with recovery, with rescue, with emergency personnel, and with talk now of the conversations happening between the agencies. So as we had mentioned before, we certainly expect there to be a central command.
Right, this is too technical for me. This is already a guy in MBA with no emotion. I could do without him. Let's go to Reno, Nevada. Matthew, what are you feeling right now? Go ahead.
Well, Michael, my question is, when the day comes that the American people realize that the government cannot or will not protect them from terrorism or disaster, will we as American citizens be able to do what it takes to defend ourselves in this country?
No, of course not. You'll be the target of the federal government. That's one thing they're good at. That's one thing I can guarantee you they can do real swiftly, which is disarm you. Thank you for the call. No, we're not capable of anything. The day of the Minutemen are over. The day of the Boston Tea Party is over. The day of the British are coming is over. If Paul Revere were alive today, he would be considered a right-wing nut. If George Washington were alive today, he'd be considered a right-wing nut. If General Patton were alive today, he'd be considered a right-wing nut. That's because the left-wing the insane left-wingers run everything that you read and that you see, with very rare exception. That's why they want to close down talk radio. But let's be very clear. We have no idea what happened. The only thing we know for sure is that it was not terrorism-related. We have to assume that immediately as a knee-jerk reaction, because if we don't, we're considered right-wing nuts. There's a truck on fire, a tractor-trailer on fire, really badly on fire. Go to the news feed out of Minneapolis, please.
With KARE 11 News, been with us now for the better part of the summer, and he's on the phone with us. Jeffrey, if you would, can you tell us what access has been like for you? I don't know if you have your camera with you, if emergency personnel...
This is of no value. Go on to michaelsavage.com. It's a better feed than Fox, CNN, or MSNBC has right now, because it's local. And, it's the main channels are showing what looks to me like pretty static footage. Right now, we've got a chopper over the scene, which is totally dynamic. It is totally different than what I'm seeing on any of the news channels, and I don't really know why. It seems to me that the Chopper 5 local news that we got up on the website is live and now. I see women walking around on the roadway who are dazed. I see others sitting down on the roadway, totally crying and dazed. I see rescue workers sitting in the middle of the river on a concrete pylon trying to resuscitate people who look like they're in very serious shape, as you would expect. There is no reason to think this is terror-related, according to Fox News, and you know how reliable they are. They had their call from Saudi Arabia, where there's a minority partnership. And one thing you can know is there's no terrorism here. It was simply bolts and nuts that broke as a result of road work. That's something we can guarantee you. Just as every time there's a plane crash, we're told it's the pilot who did it, that it was not the aircraft itself that had any flaw whatsoever. And that is because you can't sue a dead pilot, but you can certainly sue the manufacturer of an airplane. So we, the people, are really stuck between fantasy and conspiracy, and we rarely get the truth about anything. So all we can do is speculate. And speculate we will. 1-800-449-8255. WOR New York. Chuck, what's your immediate gut reaction?
Chuck from New York, and I'm originally from Minneapolis, and I've driven past that bridge, back and forth many times. And even though we can't rule it as terrorism, I wouldn't be surprised if it was, basically because living here in New York, I thought it was very liberal, but I don't think a lot of people know just how progressive, ultra-liberal, how should I put it, atheistic and secular humanistic the state of Minnesota is. It is the most. And I've traveled all around the country. And the thing I have to say about it, too, is
what you're arguing then in a stretch here is that because it is so PC and left-wing, a terrorist would have a very easy time of it in Minneapolis because the police have been trained not to think anybody of a certain particular type is of any particular interest. That's what you're saying, correct?
Right. Even all our politics and education, it's the most...
Oh, yeah. Oh, well, that's why the imams chose to do a lawsuit in Minneapolis. They know where the soft spots are in America. They're expert at martial arts. They go for the soft spots of America. Minneapolis is long known to be a whack job city because of the university and the inculcation of the stupidity of the left there. But it has nothing to do with this. This could be an old nuts and bolts infrastructure collapse as well. What you're saying is true, but it may not be related fundamentally. What we're going to do now is go to the live. I think we're finished with the live feed. Is it over? Let me hear a minute of that. Then let's go to a quick commercial break and come back.
To be the case, it looks just to be a horrible tragedy.
It's just a mystery.
Yeah,
a mystery from MnDOT as well. They said some construction was going on the bridge. Of course, we all know that's normal this time of year and
minor
every
even
summer.
by their own
minor construction. He said just some concrete repair going on at the time. We did have an eyewitness who said that
it's spontaneous collapse. It's like spontaneous collapsing.
He was driving past at 10 to 15 miles an hour in bumper-to-bumper traffic shortly after after 6 o'clock when
it's a
all
spontaneous
of a sudden,
collapse. It has nothing to do with
gave
anything.
Way in both directions, as you can see, and landed in the
Hold it. A new Al-Qaeda web ad threatens a big surprise. Again, that has nothing to do with this. Nothing whatsoever. Big surprise, but again, I can guarantee you, although we know nothing about why the bridge collapsed, it has nothing to do with terrorism. Because if you even think so, the police might knock your door down and have you arrested for unpatriotic thinking. I'll be right back.
Children who were on a swim team who were involved in this accident. Joe, were you able to find out anything more from those parents?
Well, this is the live feed. You can turn it off now. The tragic bridge collapse in Minneapolis during rush hour. At least 3 are dead. I'm sure many more by tonight. You'll hear much more about it. But what just came out in the last 10 minutes is very interesting. There was no structural work going on in this bridge. It was surface road work, repaving. And that's why there were only 2 lanes of traffic on this bridge. So we can't claim it was construction. We do know one thing, that it was not terrorism related, because that's what the Homeland Security Department told us. So we have to take their word for it. And, of course, by tomorrow, you're going to have the hacks on television interviewing Hillary for her opinion, Obama and his opinion. It'll be like Hillary says she's man enough to have stopped this from happening before the bridge collapsed. Obama says had there been more progressive politics, this bridge wouldn't have collapsed. The money would have been spent on bridge repair instead of war and the killing in Iraq. Edwards would have said had he been president, he would have sued the pants off the contractors years and years ago as a preventative tactic. And, of course, George Bush will get up and say it definitely is not nuclear. 1-800-449-8255 is the phone number. Freeway bridge collapses in Minneapolis during rush hour, several dead. The live feed video on michaelsavage.com is really the best one if you can download it. I think we're being hit so hard I can't even get it right now. But it'll be up very shortly. Illegal alien contributions to the U.S. is up there. And the Minneapolis imams have dropped passengers from a lawsuit over removal from flight. They didn't drop it. Congress dropped it out from under their lawsuit. What a liar. See, but there's an example of the left wing in the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. It says imams drop passengers from lawsuit over removal from flight. They didn't drop them. Congress passed a law saying that these bums, these fraudulent bums, cannot sue the John Does because of their suspicious behavior. I'd like to sue the imams for suing us based upon false charges. Las Vegas, Paul, you're on the Savage Nation.
Hey, Dr. Savage, as always, our prayers go out.
Please, just give us your opinion. I don't mean to cut you off. We need to do it 30 seconds or less. What's on your mind?
The reason that the feds, I think, didn't make a big deal is because of the crap that they suffered with Katrina. And remember, it's the local and the state and the county responders that have to do the work first. And remember, that they were horrible in Louisiana and in New Orleans, and so they don't.
Well, what's the federal government going to do for us if, God forbid, we should be hit with an actual terrorist attack? Pass the buck to the state or the local authorities and say it's not our purloin?
No, but
what are they doing with the trillions of dollars we gave to Homeland Security?
Yeah, well,
don't they have any obligation to supply any kind of help for the people in the river?
Sure.
Doesn't FEMA have any helicopters they could fly in there and pull people out of the river? Where are they? Where are the helicopters, the federal helicopters? That's what I'm asking, okay? Let's know the basic. We gave Mr. Chertoff and company billions of dollars for Homeland Security. I'm sure he's doing a great job. Why are there no federal helicopters fishing people out of the river? How's that for a common sense question? And where is the common sense answer? That's what I'd like to know. We know this is not terror related. That we know for sure. WOR New York, Phyllis, fire away your opinion, please.
Yeah, hi, Michael. I just came back to New York after 28 years living in Israel. My son is still in the Army there, and I can tell you this is not a terrorist attack for one reason. Every single attack is always accompanied by some kind of a release by a group taking credit for the attack.
Okay.
If you don't know that they did it, then they're not terrorizing you.
Okay, I hear you, and that's very important for you to say. So therefore, we go back to infrastructure, pure infrastructure. But first they said it was construction, undermining the roadway. But now we learned it was surface construction, repaving only. So the theory that the jackhammers collapsed the bridge is over now. Right now, it's a big question mark, Phyllis.
Well,
it's a big question mark, and we'll leave it at that. We'll just leave the KNEW. George, fire away your opinion. Go ahead.
So, Mike, I'm sure it's unrelated, but there's a lot of news about the radicalization of the taxi drivers in the Minneapolis airport, where you can't carry alcohol or take your dog into the.
So you're not saying this was a reaction to the fact that they had to carry passengers with alcohol or seeing eye dogs, are you? You're not saying because they couldn't get foot baths, they collapsed the bridge so they could get their feet wet.
Exactly.
All right. Well, I know I have a dark sense of humor, and some are going to take offense at it, but it's too bad. That's the way I am. It's one man's opinion and one man's reaction. I react to tragedy in this manner. If you don't like it, then go listen to Jack Benny. Get some old Jack Benny tapes if you don't like the Michael Savage Show. I have a sarcastic, sardonic sense of humor, and it's not illegal. Providence, Rhode Island. Rich, you're on the Savage Nation.
Good evening, Michael. How are you?
What's your opinion, please?
I haven't seen any of the pictures of the bridge yet, but I was wondering, is it a cable stay bridge or a concrete section bridge that has
concrete section bridge?
It sounds to me like the concrete failed. In Providence, Rhode Island, we tested a bridge 10 years ago that was ready to fail, and it still hasn't been replaced. They're looking to replace it.
You're saying just the old concrete itself can start to lose its resiliency at a certain point.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, let's assume that's what it is. This is a terrible story. I realize that some people have no dark sense of humor. They find nothing funny, and it'll be widely reported that I made a mockery of the dead, which I didn't do. It just shows you what mean-spirited people the people on the left are. Tomorrow is another day, and with God's will and your listenership, there will be no further tragedies, just stories.
Savage.
Well, thank you very much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it and learned something from it. We have about 400 other episodes available for you to listen to absolutely free. You can go back into our vast library of podcasts and listen to any one of them at any time. And remember this, if you want to listen to my podcast ad-free, sign up for the Savage Premium membership and get access to ad-free podcasts as well as some premium content from our Savage archives. How do you sign up for those ad-free podcasts? Please visit michaelsavage.com for a link. Again, thank you for your listenership. This is Michael Savage.